Hello, I'm Daniel Carwile from Carwile String Studio in Lexington, Kentucky. I'd like to teach you a tune today that I've been playing for 40 years. It's called Kentucky Waltz. You know, I've heard this in, I think, all 12 keys in the last 40 years, certainly in 7 or 8 keys and fiddle competitions. I think the most popular key in the last 10 years in the contest world is probably the key of C or D. And so I'm going to play it in D for you today. I have heard a lot of fiddlers. I remember Mark O'Connor back in the 80s playing it in E and then also in the key of F. So any waltz for sure, and in some of the other tunes you play, depends on the tune now. So, but several of your jigs and hornpipes that are part of your repertoire, I think it's a good idea to play them in many different keys. That way you can work on string crossings and different fingering combinations, and I think that can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than practicing scales, though that's important. But so the idea of playing things in different keys, and Kentucky Waltz is definitely a testament to that, because I've heard so many people play it in different keys. And now, what was their motivation? These fiddlers that I've heard in the last 40 years, was it they liked the color, the timbre, the sound of a certain key, or was it that they thought, for example, maybe they thought D major was an easier key to play it in, or maybe it was easier for them. You know, you have to make those decisions as a fiddler. Certainly if you're competing with these tunes, you always want to pick a tune that fits you. I had a dear friend years ago, a former teacher, that said, always accentuate your strengths and hide your weaknesses. I will never forget that. That's so true. So if your weakness is second position, don't play a waltz that goes to second position, and nobody will know that, okay? If third position's your weakness, which I doubt it is, as fiddlers we have to master first position and third position, but if third position's a weakness, for example, just don't play a waltz that goes to third position. Or if you hate the key of B flat and it doesn't fit your hand, just don't play that. Don't play a tune in B flat for now. However, challenge yourself over time to get comfortable with the B flat, because you can play in B flat. It's just a harder key, but you can do it, okay? But we're not going to do a hard key like B flat today. We're going to go back to the key of D. So I'm going to play Kentucky Waltz one time through in the key of D with double stops, what I call the juicy version. And then I'm going to go back and play it with just single notes, what I call the basic melody. Okay, and then I'll get into some explanations of that, and then at the very end I'll get into some technique things to remember, things to make it sound pretty, resonant, musical. We're going to get into vibrato a little bit, when and where and how to do it. Okay, so those are all things I'm going to get into once I present the tune for you. Okay, so Kentucky Waltz. A 1, 2. Now let me play just the same thing without the double stops. 1, 2. it's hard for me to always play the tune the same way. I've always been that way. So I think I was very, very close on that, all right? Let me get into that, maybe just one phrase at a time for you as well, okay? So let's try that opening phrase. I think it'll be more helpful for you as you piece this together. 1, 2. Okay, that's the first phrase. If you're a music reader, I highly suggest you transcribe that, okay, and write it out on staff paper. If you play by ear and you don't read music, which is fine, tab that out with fingerings, okay? Now the next phrase, that way you can look at it the next day and not have to go back to the video every single day. Okay. Of course, while watching the video, you can pause it at any time and write this out, all right? And then the next phrase. So that was our third phrase. Here comes the fourth one. Okay, and now we're back to basically the original phrase. Next phrase with pickup notes. Okay, next phrase. Okay, and then the last phrase. Okay, so learn that basic version first, and then go back and listen to the original one I played for you with the double stops. I'm going to try to play that exactly like I did earlier. Now I'm going back to the double stop version and tell you what I actually did. So right there, the main melody was open A, melody note, and then all I did was drone the open D strings. Let me try that again. That's easy. So let me start that again so you'll have a starting point. So all I did there was drone the open A string. That's back to that open D and A. Here, instead of separating that C sharp and that E or that high 3 and 1, I'm then going to put them together as a double stop. You could play open E with that C sharp if you want. If you don't like that sound, if your E string on your violin's bright and kind of loud, you could just or squeaky, you could avoid that. I play G and open A together, and that works fine because that's an A7 chord. That's that same double stop we just played now. C sharp and E, high 3 and 1. So there I just keep that F sharp high 2 planted, and then I just add the 3, the D to it or with it, and then they're touching. That way I know I'm in tune. Now we're on to that next phrase. Back to open A and D. Again, F sharp and open A. Now there I play that F sharp, but I like to slide into it. It makes it a little bit more dramatic. And then I'm playing, of course, open A with it because it's a D chord. See how resonant that is? Just easy. It's a first finger B and an open D. That's a sixth, we call it. Like that's the most popular, most common. It's the prettiest double stop, I think, on the violin. It's nice and open and wide sounding. F sharp again. There's that sixth again, D and B. Now there I remember playing E and C sharp, 1 and 2, and they're not touching now. A good inch between the fingers. And then there's that same double stop we played earlier, an F sharp and a D, 2 and 3 touching. And again, that's a sixth. Again, the most popular double stop. You need to be able to play sixths on the violin, okay? And then when you play sixths, your adjacent fingers are either touching or not touching. It really depends on the key we're in. That's what dictates it. Or if you don't want to think about the key, just use your ear. If it sounds good, it's probably correct. And if it sounds off, it's probably not correct. It's probably in another key, okay? Now, we talked about, I've mentioned at the first part of the video, vibrato, when and where. Well, it's really easy. Vibrato, all you got to do is put it on the long notes. And I tell students the long notes on waltzes are dotted quarter notes or longer. So if you're playing with a metronome, that's any note that gets 2 clicks. And by the way, the metronome marking on this, I would say no slower than 100 and probably no faster than 116. As long as you're in that window, you're fine, okay? You may prefer slower waltzes, and that's fine. Just hover around 100. If you're from Canada, where they play the waltzes faster, just go faster, okay? It's just really a personal preference. And it also goes back to what I said earlier as well. Accentuate your strengths, hide your weaknesses. If you're better slower, go slow, okay? So let's get into that then. Long note, guess what? Vibrato. Again, vibrato. So that's all you got to remember. Anything that's a dotted quarter or longer, we vibrate, okay? When I was a little boy, I didn't think about, oh, it's a dotted quarter or it's a half note. Nah, it was just a long note. Any note I'm holding out, I need to vibrate on a waltz. Then that leads me to my next question, not necessarily how we're doing the vibrato, but I want you to concern yourself with the width and the speed of my vibrato. Okay, that's what I call a medium speed and a medium width, okay? So think of it, there's wide, there's medium, and there's really skinny or tight vibrato. There's slow vibrato, medium vibrato, and fast vibrato. So I like that medium, kind of medium fast for waltzes. Now if you could see this, I hope the video captures this. Look at the width of my finger. And by the way, the tip of your finger is just like a rocking chair on vibrato. We're just swiveling. That's all we're doing. Or rocking like that rocking chair. Okay, I like to think that is about a quarter of an inch. Okay, so I'm swiveling or rocking about a quarter of an inch, perhaps an eighth of an inch, but not half an inch. Okay, we don't want a really, really wide vibrato. Neither do we want an excessively fast vibrato like this. See, that sounds overdone. It's obnoxious. It's not pretty. So you want it to sound pretty. I always tell students like you're trying to put the newborn babies to sleep at the hospital, okay? That would wake them up. They would cry. We should put those babies to sleep. And it's just a classic example of less is more, okay? Please don't overdo the vibrato. Less is more. Nice and gentle. And then another little trick about the vibrato, try to keep your fingertips soft. I see a lot of students, and I have in my career, they try to manipulate or control the vibrato too much. Don't press down too hard with your fingertip, just enough to get the job done, okay? So the softer your finger is, the more vibrato, the more control you have with your vibrato. You can learn to control the speed and the width. But if you press down, you're only going to have one speed and one width. So some of you guys, as you watch this and you start working on it, work on softening your fingertip, okay? It really doesn't require that much on the violin. It's not like you're playing mandolin where you have to press much harder, okay? So lighter is better and not too fast, okay? What about our bowings? Well, I'd say in general on waltzes, not just this one, but all of them, slurring is good. Okay, the more you slur, the smoother you're gonna sound. I mean, listen to Vassar Clements, man. He figured that out early on. He learned he could play fast by slurring, so he slurred as much as he could. There's nothing wrong with that. On a waltz, you want to do that as well. Nice long bows that are nice and controlled, with a nice, relaxed, soft wrist. It's dreamy. It's putting those babies asleep again, as I said earlier. Whereas if you don't slur, it's just kind of bland and boring. So that's the connective tissue, okay? In general, I'm slurring one measure at a time, about every 3 beats. Because this has pickup notes, I'm doing the pickup notes as an up bow, just like you would in the classical world. Now, I suggested earlier that some of you guys that are more ear players, when you tab it out, you could just write in the bowing. If you're more of a sheet music reader, as you transcribe it, just pencil in the bowing, okay? And my bowing, it may not be a great bowing for you. I mean, try different things. I don't think waltzes are I don't think they're absolute. I don't think there's just one way to bow the waltz, okay? I think faster tunes, the bowing's more important. I think the main thing with waltzes is that we keep that bow going, It's like singers. We got to keep the air going when we sing for our phrasing. The bow is the same thing. Our bow is this continuous air stream. Okay, so we're trying to imitate our human voice. We would want to play it like we sing it. Always remember that. Okay, but see how much bow I'm using. I'm basically about 1 inch in front of the bow grip here, and I'm going down to about 2 inches. So that's probably about 20 inches. I'm using a lot of the hair. Also, from the side, ever so slightly, like the classical tradition. So I'm rolling over probably 30 to 40 degrees. On a faster tune, I don't do that. On faster tunes, I tend to keep what I call the stick over the hair more, which gives me flatter hair. But on waltzes, I roll over, okay? From a physics point of view, that just means less drag. That means I can move the bow more quickly, which gives me more tone, but not scratchy tone, because less hair is really touching the string. That's what's really happening. So that's a sweet tone, whereas if I flatten that out, it's not as pretty, it's a little scratchy. Then I'd have to lighten up a little bit, and I don't like to do that. I like to think of your bow. I had a wonderful teacher years ago who said, imagine you have a helium balloon tied to your arm, and it's been hanging here for 20 minutes. Somebody comes along and they cut the string. And then your arm falls. That falling sensation, that's the essence of our tone. I don't think of it as a muscular thing, like I'm pressing. No. Fall or hang into the string. And on these waltzes, when you're using a lot of bow, you get to embrace that reality. And then your audience, they get to enjoy that tone, that beautiful tone that you're creating. Okay, so always try to use as much bow as you possibly can. Okay? That's going to make us have that big, wonderful, beautiful sound that we're looking for. When you couple that with your vibrato we talked about, not too fast, not too slow, kind of in the middle, and not too wide and not too super skinny either, kind of in the middle. We talked about maybe 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch. We talked about not pressing too hard. That's really, really important. So the technique things we talked about, the vibrato and the bowing, you can implement that on anything you play, any slow thing, any ballad, any love song, any waltz. If you're playing church on hymns, anything like that, anything is slow and smooth, know when and where to use that vibrato. And as I said earlier, that's on the dotted quarter notes or longer. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this little video today. I hope you enjoy Kentucky Waltz and have a lot of fun with it. I've certainly enjoyed making this video for you and hope to see you again sometime very soon.